So hey, again, here we are. Last time a bunch of people came in after I started, so I'm not going to start by saying that we have massive attrition. I'm going to assume people are late. So emphasizing all previous classes are up on YouTube, and no one has clicked like on any of them. So
I like one.
Okay, so
and there was already one like when I saw it.
Special happiness points
too.
go to Ben for clicking like. Please do that. It is good for me. So do that. I was looking at what I assigned you, and if you read that, I'm sure it was very, very good for you. Now, don't do any of that. So I read through it this morning, and I'm all like, gosh, this is really horrible. So I spent a little time, and I wrote you the way it's supposed to be done. And we can go from there. What we're going to cover today is making Hello World using the Django framework. Now, if you have not done any of your Python homework, you are not going to be lost because I've made it very simple and straightforward, and hopefully you can play along without issues. Now, if you have been paying attention and you have looked at the schedule of things going, what I did mark on today is midterm presentations. Now, question is, did anybody actually do anything?
Unfortunately not.
Bueller, Kavita, I know you have worked in some Python. How's that experience been for you?
It's good. I mean, it just not listening to classes is what I realized. You have to go back and look at what you just taught in the class and then do it over and over again. You'll definitely get there.
So doing homework's a good idea.
Oh, yes, it is definitely.
Okay, excellent. So
For
the
me,
feedback
yes.
from Kavita, do your homework. Anyone else have feedback, questions, hypotheses?
I heard some people talking about it would be nice if we could get, I guess, an actual assignment per se, like an actual Python, like do this.
Oh,
Versus looking for.
what a red letter day this is. Students are asking for homework. Wow, okay, so that's really interesting. My knee-jerk reaction is, have you done the entire workbook at the end of the Python book I gave you originally? If you have not, that's probably a really good place to start. But okay, I take that as a challenge. So what I'm about to introduce to you is Django, and Django allows you to use a web server to deliver Python. So that should allow us to really step up our game, and you should be able to display some things from your laptop or even from a web server by the end of this class today. So really straightforward. So, okay. With no further ado. Excellent, excellent, excellent. So to get started, right, we're using active state Python. Please use active state, save yourself a headache. The docs for Django are right here on how to do the installation, depending on your operating system and all your requirements. And just type this. Done. If you have active state Python and you do pip install Django, you now have Django. That's it. Very simple. Yes, there's more to it, but no, not really. So there you go. If you want to test to see if you have Django working, open a Python prompt and type import Django, which I will do right now to prove to you that I do have Django running.
In addition to putting these on YouTube, are the actual presentations somewhere out that we can click on and
I
get
just
the links?
emailed it to you moments ago.
Well, I just typed pip install Django and it says invalid 7 seconds.
Well, good job. Do you have active state Python?
I typed Python in CMD.
Okay, so you're inside Python.
I'm inside.
Pip is outside of Python. So
Okay.
from here, I would type pip install.
How do I get out of Python?
It has to be in your
That's it.
Yeah,
Function call.
yeah. Or Control Z, one of the
sweet.
two.
Cool.
Okay, so Python import Django. Whoa. And it's Django version. We'll show you what version you're running. Okay, so here we go. Back to where we were. Now, if you do just a normal Django install, I think they're still pushing 1.6. I'm running an older version on purpose, so we can talk about that later. Make a folder, any folder, and CD into that folder. For those of you playing along at home, you can do this right now in front of your face, and what I'm about to show you will actually work in real time. I'm going to show you every click, every character you need in order to make a web page flow through Django. So I'm going to move into my folder, whatever that folder is. I don't care what you called it. I'm going to type django-admin.py start project my project. This should create a folder inside that place you started called my project. And inside that, it will create 4 files for you. init.py, which I'll explain in a moment. Manage.py, this is the framework manager. If you are dealing with the framework in any way, shape, or form, you go through manage. Settings. Duh, it's the settings for the framework, right? You got to have a settings file someplace. So settings, yeah, it makes sense. Wow, crazy. And URLs. What's a URL? A web address. Hypertext transfer protocol.
Universal resource.
Yeah, there we go. I was hoping somebody would call it up, right? It's not a freaky thing out there and all of that. It actually has a name. Its URL is the acronym for that name, which is
Universal resource.
Thank you. Someone just said it. God, it's like pulling teeth. Answer the questions. Okay. So this init.py, if you have a Python module that you're going to import and or deal with, it needs to have this saying, hey, I actually run and I exist. So that's why this is created when you run this. This will be empty. Doesn't necessarily have to be empty, but 99% of the time this file is going to be empty. It's just, hey, I'm a Python module over here. Okay, so next slide.
I think starting with Django 1.4, they changed the directory structure a little bit. Manage.py is actually at the root level when they have a sub.
Yes, you can actually use manage.py. I had to do it this way because I'm running Django 1.3 on this. So yes, if anything doesn't work exactly like you expect, check the docs because we're about to release Django 1.7. And you know us engineers, we love to change things. So you want to make sure that everything works. Anyway, in the 1.3 that I'm showing you here, it does actually function. Yeah, manage.py could be substituted here in later versions. All right. So inside this project file, I have my init manage settings and URLs. And now I can run server from inside my project, right? We just went through this whole creation thing. I now run manage.py run server. And I get this really nice prompt that says, hey, I'm running, 0 errors, and I'm running at this web address. Now, if you use your favorite web browser to go to this, what does it say? Okay, no one knows. It says hello. It's really quite simple. It's a basic Django, hey, you got me working. It worked. So, yes, it's really that simple. Oh boy, it gets easy. So, what we're going to do is a basic hello isn't going to work for us, right? We want to actually create an application that does things. Wow, what a concept. So, we need to start our app blog. Then I'm going to cd into the folder that I just created, and it's going to have a bunch of files again. This init saying, hey, I'm a Python. Models, views, and tests. And I don't use this pattern, I put tests for each file.
That's a unit test?
These are unit tests. Okay, so I just created a sub app called blog, and it creates all these files. The ones that we're going to talk about today are views, and another one that you're going to add in here called URLs, which allows us to call properly. So make it show. How do we get to it? A URL. URLs.py connects any URL to any view. So Django is a model view controller pattern.
Okay.
Okay, computer science. Okay, now we're talking serious stuff here. MVC, that's what we're talking about. So it's a little muddled as far as what goes where. I'm not going to talk about models today, models next time, but this is where your data goes. A URL, how am I getting there? A view, which is a view of this model, and then your template, which you use to view whatever it is you're viewing. It's like this goes that way and that goes this way and all the rest of it. The most important thing, you use a URL to view your template. Huh? Huh? See how I did that there? Huh? Huh? Okay, so that's what we're about to talk about. I'm trying to bring this down so we can just get the basics through, and then we can really get into some serious, what can we do with this power? Okay, so first we're going to make a few tweaks, and I think I left a tweak off of here too, so we'll need to make sure that's in there. We're going to add the admin in. Django has a special admin that we use to view models and the data inside those models. But I'm going to have you open this settings.py file and make corrections right away. And you're going to go, why am I doing this? Bear with me, just make the changes and we'll talk about why as soon as we get to that section. So where it says uncomment, these actually are in settings.py. And it says uncomment, uncomment, uncomment. And do what it tells you to do. The other thing that we need to do, and I'm going to show you this file so we're all on the same page. A project, my project, settings. Whoa, don't run it, open it. Okay, it's got a whole bunch of garbage in here. Don't worry about any of that for the moment. I'm sliding down to where it says uncomment. Ta-da, ta-da, ta-da. I know it's maybe hard to see on the video, but it says uncomment the next line. So I uncommented it, and it says uncomment the next line. So I uncommented that too. And then I added blog, which is my app that I just made. Right? We just did start app, not one frame ago. If you don't remember, we need to talk. Okay, so blog. So I'm adding this in here so it gets imported into my project. And that is missing from my slide, so you may be confused if you didn't actually watch class. Okay, so now inside of, I made the changes to settings, right? Now I'm going to work with the URLs file. So my project, urls.py, here's what it looks like right this second. And as with the settings.py, a bunch of stuff is commented out. Bear with me, just uncomment it and we'll be happy. So we're going to remove these comments here, we're going to remove these comments here, and I'm going to tweak this example. Okay, so we're going to do that. And here's the result. So I uncommented those, I uncommented these, and I added my own little URL piece in here. Our application, we're going to call it blog. My application could be called foobar, and I could have the URL call it at my friendly puffy pony. So the name does not correlate in any way with the class that you're calling. Okay, so this URL can be anything. Ponies are pink and purdy. You know, it can be anything you want. Now that calls my blog module. So logically, I'm going to call it blog. So that's why I put the word blog here. Now there's an R in front of this string. Anyone?
Do you care about the slices kind of?
No, I'm just kidding. I'm not sure why.
No, the paths and all those things are, if you don't use it, then that will be the slices and all those things shows in different way.
Okay, you're definitely gaining on it. R stands for regular expression. okay? And our URL can look a whole bunch of different ways. So we can actually interpret what the URL call is. And it could have a number in it could have a different string in it could have all kinds of things in it. And Python, Django, because they were really, really smart, uses a regular expression to decrypt your URL. This opening caret means
Starting again.
yes, at the start of the string, and this closing slash is literally a closing slash. So we blog slash will give it to us. Now this is all off the root. We can go up one, and this is how you would call the root, but we're just calling blog. So this will call my project blog URLs. We didn't have a urls.py in our blogs folder, so we need to make one. Whoa, can you go back one? I think you skipped. No, we didn't. Oh yeah. Yep. Oh my gosh, now we're having all kinds of fun. And now spacebar, happiness. So we just pointed to the blog folder, but we need a urls.py inside our blog folder in order for us to actually use a URL with it. So we're going to call blog, but then what goes under that? And we're going to just start with the root. So it's an empty regular expression. It goes right at the root, right? So when we call blog by itself, we're going to get this pattern. And this pattern calls blog index view, which I imported from my blog views file, which we haven't built yet. We're about to build that. Bear with me. We need a URL to get to our view. Now that we've constructed a URL to get to our view, we're going to make that view. But what are we viewing? So I'm going a little out of order, or am I going a little out of order? Let's make the template first so we know what we're going to view before we set up the view to do it. So here's our template. Project blog templates blog index.html. You would think it would go in templates. I do this pattern because in more advanced views, if you use this pattern where you put your files, you don't have to tell it what template to look for. So don't worry about it at the moment, but if you take this pattern, you will be happy. And that is, here's my app. I make a templates folder, the name of my app, and then the template that I'm putting in there. Oh my gosh, this is terribly confusing. I don't know what to do. In this folder is where your app is. You can just skip all of this and put this there. But the design pattern's funky because then your Python files are with your HTML files. So we want to separate our Python and HTML. They're templates, so they go into a templates directory. The templates directory is shared as a pattern among all your apps. So if you use that same pattern in each one of your apps, then it becomes very simple for you to look for the template for your app by going to the templates folder, wherever that might be, / your app name. We'll get to that more as we talk about class-based views, but we're talking simple views now. This is just my suggested pattern. Now we're going to make blog index.html. Hopefully you know how to make an HTML file. And inside that, we'll put a simple div tag, hello world. We should be happy. You don't even need the div in theory. You can shove any HTML out there. Yay, happy. Make a view using that template. So now we're in views.py, blog/views.py, and we're going to create a view to look at that template. So we're going to import template view. Now I'm making this really nice class, blog index of the type template view, and we give it a name, blog/blogindex.html. That is your entire view. This goes at the bottom, which creates an instance of this view, which is what we called from our URLs. If you go back a page, please. I'll do it. I'm faster than you. Right. Log index view. We call that from the root of our app, which is blog. How we doing? A little bit of nodding. I think we're doing okay. So this class contains everything you need in order to produce a web page. Now we give it a template as that web page, and it produces it as a view. Yay. Yes, please. So now, with our nifty little server that's running, we showed you it running before. I'll do it again so you can see it running in the background. And wrong place. We're going to go to the project, my project. You should be sitting at a prompt much like this. We're going to go to this URL. It says there's no URL there. They're right, blog. Right? So it's our main root, so that's just an empty regular expression, but we use blog to point to the root of our application. That's where a nice regular expression comes into play right there. And it says hello world, which is awesome. And now that blog index.html you can change and make it into whatever you'd like. So let's change it and make it into whatever we'd like. So we're going to add something to that hello world page. And we're going to do that by supering our view and adding number to the context. So super is causing the class to be stacked upon. Supers are treated in the order based upon the object mix-in order. So what is it talking about? Let's look at a real example, thank you. So here we go. Template view, we did that a moment ago. Random, you may or may not have used that, but it's the random library. Here's our view, just like you saw it moments ago. Now I'm adding to the context. And I do that by supering the get context data call from that view. So this is a template view. In order to cause a template into existence so I can look at that template, it renders it. When we render a template, we give it a context. In that context, it can have all kinds of things. But in this case, I want my context to have number and have that be a random number. So the way I get access to that context is I super the method that Django is using to construct the context, and I add an item to that context. Okay, so I'm supering blog index, and I'm supering the function get context data. Now, if I call this, it's going to give me that context. Now, I want to add to that context. Context is simply a dictionary. So I'm going to create a new key called number inside that context. So, one more time. This is where we started with our nice template. That renders fine. I want to add to my template a dynamic variable called number. The way I do that is I append the context of the template. And I append that context by supering get context data. So pretty advanced object-oriented, yeah, whatever. Supering is a very object thing. We do it quite often, actually, and this particular pattern of supering get context data in a view is something I do a lot, because quite often I want my template to have all kinds of different things in it. In this case, I want number. So let's look at that template with number. Hang on. Now this actually has that number in it. Cool. Good.
So basically say where and what to do that.
And let's have a look at what I put in the template. I think I have a screen for that. Yes, this is how I get that number. So as long as I include this in that template, I'm happy. And let's have a look at that HTML template that I have going right there in real time, so you can see I'm not fooling you. I added number to the context. Now you can do a lot more. I've added simply one variable that I created with a random number generator. If we go, which I put inside these variable brackets, but there's also control, so I can actually do things inside the templates. So my HTML is actually intelligent. I have the ability to use ifs and fors and things like that. There we go. So as you can see, for equals, greater than, not in, if equal, load, all kinds of different things are available to you from the Django templates. And those, I believe, yeah, that's my last slide for this round. So now what we get to do is discuss, because I have a feeling this idea is rather confusing. So next time we're going to deal with models so we can get a whole lot more complicated, but I want to make sure that you understand how we're generating views here. Questions? Really?
So I actually tried from the very beginning of what you had on your list here,
Cool.
and it failed. So I don't know if we want to handle this offline, but
You don't want to tell me what error you're going to hold it over my head?
no, it said it couldn't fetch base URL.
Me too.
Right.
When I got
That's an internet connectivity issue.
Well, we are connected to the internet. Maybe it's a firewall issue?
Awesome. Yes, that would be my guess.
Okay.
The same deal.
That's the exact same error. Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm using a special version of Django, which is why I'm not all like, yeah, that's how you do it.
Maybe we can install from the URL you gave us instead of just pip install Django?
That URL will tell you what you need to know in order to do install from Git and or other locations.
Okay. Start with that.
So yes, and I'll double check that and make sure I cure that in my instructions. So that means no one else has caught up with me this whole time, probably. So that's a trip.
Let's try the second one. So there's some other way of installing this?
Is there some other way of installing this?
You were just referring to something other than doing pip install.
Yeah, if you
Django.
go to the instructions URL,
If you have the GDK, if you have a more recent version of the GDK, there's a problem with that pip install anyways.
with
Because there's Strawberry Pearl installed in the GDK and it can't find pip correctly. So if you don't use Perl, you could just delete the strawberry Perl and the tools of the GDK folder.
Do you get that when you type pip?
I think I already got rid of that strawberry pearl thing.
I mean, it's possible. That was a different thing.
I do get that error when I
Yeah.
type pip.
Me too.
Oh, that means you're using the right pip.
If I get, yes, I do have that.
Yeah.
Python, Apache, databases.
If you do where space pip, that tells you if you have strawberry Perl installed.
Where space pip?
Yeah, just in the command prompt where pip.
So I have Python 2.7 scripts pipexe.
If that's all you have, then you're probably.
Well, it also looks like it has a second line in there that says the strawberry.
Yeah, if you have the other ones, it will not know which one to
And
use.
Just
Or
FYI,
it
I
tries
just
to use
did
the
exactly what I said on this machine, and it does work.
I think it's international. Are you connected to the guest or?
I am connected
I
to
just did it over GuestNet on this machine. I know it works.
ad.igt.com.
I think it works.
Griffin GPO. Alright, so what should we use? Uber
Here,
guest?
look.
It's a
Here.
That's
yes,
what
yes,
it
yes.
Okay, cool.
That works.
Sweet. Let's do it. No security key? Or-
Here.
My
Oh.
phone was
Thanks.
It's really funny. That Android AP is my phone. I left it running.
Is that an L or a I? Yeah.
I got to where? The URL.
Looks like it's doing better.
La. So if you got Django installed, then you can do the rest of it step by step.
So on the My First App page, it's kind of close. Is that just like starting from where we were, like on the previous page? Like you just start from the same location?
Yes. In my project, you would run this start app block.
Okay. That threw me off.
Okay.
I think I thought it was a different thing.
Let me make sure we're in the right folder then. All else fails, change your docs. So we're supposed to be project. That should help me find where it's supposed to be. Oh, a lot of people actually doing it this time.
Nobody else has any questions. Some people
You people.
didn't have Django,
Yep, I would agree with that.
which is what I was working for part of.
So, okay, if you're going to be that way about it, then I am going to sit here and program and show you stuff. Actually, let's do this in Python so it looks better. Log. Okay, now it's all nice and color coded. So here we set our context. You sure everybody understands about supering an object class? I don't believe you. Okay, so I'm going to add something else to my context. How about a list? Okay, and now I'm going to go to my template, which I have over here, I believe. Here we go. Put a BR tag in here, and I'm going to add in my list. I'm predicting in my head, what am I seeing on the page? A nothing.
Really? That was
No, not really. It helps if I actually run the test server. A list. Kind of boring. Let's see what we can do with that list. Shut off these character terms because they're annoying.
So is it too much? Is it too late to ask? What does it mean to superclass?
All right. Love it. In just a moment, we will do that.
Thank you.
And let's get fancy and make it look all nice. Predictions?
Print the list vertically.
Somebody wants brownie points today. Okay, so we added to our context, right? Our context has variables in it. Number, we saw the list. That shows us a list. Now what I'm doing is I'm iterating using a for across this list, turning this into items. Each item I output, bada bing. BR tag, BR tag. If you don't know BR tag, well, take an HTML class. Pretty cool? Yeah, here we go. Let's try this. Why does it say no?
Oh, because 0 is false.
Because 0 is false. Yay! Ben, you're getting all the points today. But I don't know about any of you, but I've never been able to use if in an HTML form before. So it's really nice that Django gives you the ability to work with variables and do all kinds of jump through hoops things directly in your templates. So while you chew on that for a moment, go back to my wonderful slides, which are around here someplace. And, yeah. All right. When I instantiate this view, we good with instantiating an object, right? I have an object class. That object class is nothing other than a definition. When I actually manifest that object, I create a pointer to RAM, and that RAM address contains an instance of that object. So what I'm doing here is I'm creating an asView instance of this class. When I do that, asView contains getContextData. So this instance contains a method called getContextData. What that method does originally is sets up the context of the template. And context has a whole bunch of different information. Let's see if I can cause an error here so I can show you some other things. Right? This template has all kinds of information in its context. It has all those URLs, it has the request method, all of that's in the context of this template. Now my template is pretty doggone basic. So my template has only a few variables in its context. So getContextData by default adds things to this context. Now what I want to do is I want to call that getContextData normally, but I want to shove some other stuff on top of it as well. So I call it normally right here. This super says, call your base parents, get context data. Make this method go. And it does. And I save that context and return it. So when I call this, it's identical to making the call that it originally made. I'm just superseding that. It is making that base call, but I'm also making my own call on top of that. Supering. Super duper.
So the new class does everything that the old class does and additional stuff.
Yes. Yes. Because this is the original class. I'm adding a behavior to that class, but not destroying the original behavior. Which is amazing. Because you can do this, you can have mix-ins, so I can have 5 or 6 different definitions to this object, each one of them supering that same method. And the order of execution has only to do with the order of import. So I do this a lot. I have objects of objects of objects of objects. That's one of the beauties of Python. Okay.
I don't know if it makes any difference, but looking at, now that I finally have the stuff in here running, the structure seems slightly different. It has some manage.py file, which is at a different level than the other
It's in the root.
files.
That
So-
hasn't changed. That's definitely correct. Here's where it is.
So I have manage.py not in the same folder as the init settings and URLs.
Yeah, me too.
That's
It's
what
in
I'm
a
saying
different.
about 1.4.
Yeah, I was just going through that in my head. I am a version behind as far as my structure. So,
It is what it is.
They all work the same though. There's no difference. It's just a
Okay.
directory.
yeah. So, right. I should tweak this for next week and work in Django 1.6. I'll see what I can do.
Okay, whatever.
In addition to all those, it also has something called as WSGI.
Yeah, not today. It's the connector to connect into an actual web server. So we'll get to more on that. Like, I mean, I have a few minutes. So we're running our own web server here, right? This is the development server. It is not what I use to deliver to the public. Apache, yes, happiness. If you wanted something even easier than that, we now use G-Unicorn. G-U-N-I-O, G-Unicorn, right? And that is specifically for Django projects and serving on the internet. Super easy to use. So a lot easier than Apache, that's for doggone sure. So recognize that that's out there. And you got to connect to the internet somehow. Also, if you want to host Python, not all web hosts offer Python Django, so make sure, like GoDaddy, no Python Django support. So, you know, pay attention and make sure you know what you're doing when you pick a host, because they may not offer Python for you. At least they didn't last time I looked at it. Right. Okay, so let's do something else because it's fun. Can't believe I have extra time. So let's do something a little bit more interesting. Ooh. Sorry. Okay, now let's have a look at our template. There's a dictionary, right? So predictions. Wow, it's a dictionary. It's exactly like you would think it would look. But what can we do with that? Well, it turns out you can do the exact same thing with that you would do inside Python. Keep chewing. Nobody has any questions. You fully understand what I just put up there? I don't believe you.
Sorry, I was trying to step.
No, it's okay. Good. I'm super happy. Nobody? Someone is supposed to say, it doesn't actually work that way when you call a dictionary. And it's like, yes, that's right. Inside templates, we don't have the capability of using brackets and all this kind of funkiness. So what we do is dot notation, and it starts at the most logical and goes to the least logical as possibilities. So in this case, it sees a string, so it's going to assume it's a dictionary, and so it looks up that key food. Here we say a list dot to, so that'll give me the third element, which is 4. Right? So this dot notation gives us access to both lists and dictionaries inside a template. So that makes it really, really nice to pass in a dictionary that has interesting information. Like, how about
This is the one before.
I'm going to refresh this. Ooh, did I not do it right? Or maybe I didn't save my view, which is probably what I didn't do. Yeah, I didn't save it. Where'd it go?
So what hosting would you recommend, assuming I can't get it through the GoDaddy?
I use web faction,
Okay.
just random, and I'm not being paid by them, nor do I suggest you use them. I'm saying I use them. So, for example, my dictionary has user. I can shove user onto my page. Hello, Joe. So it makes it really nice, right? Now, next week we'll deal with models, which are objects that stay. So I can pull out an object and then put that onto a page, very, very simply. But unless you understand how I'm getting it through a view, rendering a template and causing that to come out in HTML, we're going to be a little over our heads next time around. So I want to make sure we get this, right? We go from a URL, which calls our view renders our template and delivers. Template. The view is that wonderful thing that contains super that we're all going, I don't know what super is. You're not willing to talk about it anymore, so now I believe that you know what it is, and we're going to find out you don't know later. View, that's a template. URL calls the view. The view calls the template and renders it. We're supering our view's context with additional data. That context is returned. The view handles everything else. Whether it's a get, whether it's a post, all these kinds of things depend on the kind of view you use. Now, over the next couple of weeks, we're going to talk about models next time around. Then we'll probably talk about forms and how to deal with form items and variables and passing those to and fro. super easy in Django, so you'll be pleased with that part of it. Other questions?
So if I follow what you just said, this file right here is the view, but the last line of it is actually the thing called by the URL.
Yes, and this could actually be in your urls.py. You can import this class and instantiate this in your urls.py.
Okay.
I just don't like that pattern. I like
Okay.
this pattern. So if you look at a bunch of examples, you'll see this pattern used a bunch, and you'll see the other pattern used a bunch. So it's more of a what patterns do you like? I like my views to be in my views, and if I'm instantiating and I'm going to use that instance over and over again, I want to instantiate it with my original class. That's why I use this pattern. I'm trying to get you into good habits. Good question, though.
Do we have a session to talk about decorators?
Ooh, sure. I definitely am very well versed. It is not a minor topic, though. So, yes, I will try and cover that because that's a really good thing to know. And it's very Django worthy, too. I don't remember the reference library. Give me a moment.
There is.
If I knew the decorator, if I knew the, there it is. I've got to put it in dispatch too. Yeah, I don't have it in this. It's in my other class-based views, though. Cheat.
What is the name of your view file that you had? I don't see that listed in the PowerPoint here.
The view file,
The actual-
views.py.
Is it views.py? Because
It is views.py.
Yeah, it's not in the PowerPoint.
I think that's
It's not?
That's, no, I think that's.
It is not.
I think that was what was confusing Charles here.
I
He was
think
looking
it's-
at it and saying, "I see a bunch of this stuff here, but it doesn't actually say edit this file."
Ooh. Oh, bad me. Find the admin URL as point to project. You're right, it doesn't.
You lost something off the bottom now.
I did?
Yeah.
No, it resized.
I think I
You're messing with me, Ben.
Yeah, I was messing with you. I was just seeing if you
I'll leave it to you messing with me, Ben. You're messing. Oh, I was looking up.
so it's views.py.
I want my decorator for my normal view that locks it up. There are my views. We're definitely going to do testing in the near future as well. Here we go. That's what I wanted. So, yes. I'm going to move this into our context so it's not quite so what the heck is he doing? And we get to do another super, yay! Now I need to copy my files properly. There we go. And we need login required. Now if we launch this nice little template over here, it should pretty much freak out. Yes, it's freaking out. Right? because I don't have a login set up for this. As soon as I activate this method, it forces us into a login required scenario. I'm going to prove this to you and then I'll explain. Oops, sorry. Oh, I can't spell. If I undecorate this, it's going to try and push us to authentication. We have not installed authentication, so it's going to freak out and say, hey, you don't have authentication going. Now, we're supering dispatch. Dispatch is cause it to go, right? Deliver this information to the internet. So I'm going to override this. I'm actually making the call. I need to add the login to XP. It's not actually calling it properly. This needs to go here. Now it's right. I made the call anyway, which is really funny. So this is called a decorator. This @ symbol ahead of this method. And what that does, it wraps my method. So not only do I call my method, but I call a method on top of that method. What this allows me to do is inject some tests before things run. It's a function of a function. So this is actually running, but before this runs, I run this ahead of that. Why? There's a bajillion reasons why, but in this particular case, what I'm doing is I want it to run this login required test before it runs this dispatch. Thus, I intercept dispatch with a, hey, are you a registered user first? So pretty advanced computer science concept, but a pretty essential one as far as Python is concerned. I use decorators a lot. So I really like the nested functioning. It's really a great pattern. Is that a little bit of knowledge?
Yeah, I guess.
A little bit.
When will be the time to use decorators?
For mix-ins like this, absolutely. I do that all the time. I have another one that I use called task, which I'm not going to import, but I'm going to show you it used. See, this is also a decorator here. Task. And what this does is it wraps it in an asynchronous call. So I call this buy-in, but this spins up in another thread, independent of my current thread. So that's a really great example of this tool is available to me if I need it. And the only place I would put that would be in a decorator, because I have a function that's like, wow, I need that function to run asynchronously. Do I have the function inside itself know that it needs to call itself asynchronously? That's really next to impossible. So I instead, when I call that function, I intercept the call and route differently. I still make that same call, but I'll add to it, I'll do something before or after that call. So a wrapper is a really great term to use for a decorator. If you want to wrap your function, you're going to use a decorator to do that. It's a lot like super in a lot of ways. And of course, as you saw, mine use super. Anyway, whatever. A little bit of knowledge. We'll try and do some more on decorators. It's a pretty hairy thing. Good? All right, we'll see you next week.